Hello and welcome to the Innovate to Zero podcast. I'm your host, Rich Shaw, the Sustainability Lead at PDM. We are a design and innovation consultancy delivering more sustainable products for our clients. This podcast is all around how design and innovation can lead to net zero. On today's episode, we're speaking to Philips Healthcare. Philips were an early adopter of circularity with a refurbished program that started back in the 90s. Today, they're a global leader and have devices well suited to circularity. But the design of the device has to support circularity, so we'll find out more on how they're achieving this. Philips have some aspirational goals. As can be seen in their ESG report, they're targeting 25% of revenue coming from circular business streams. By 2025, Philips are aiming to have all new develops going through an eco-design program. To find out more about the journey Philips have been on and what lies ahead, I'm speaking to Chris Taylor, Sustainability Lead for UK and Ireland.
Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rich. Great to see you again.
Great to have you here. So I guess just to start off, let's do intro. So for the benefit of the audience, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So Chris Taylor, I'm the Sustainability Lead UKI for Philips Healthcare. I also convey the Sustainability Focus Group for ACSRM, our trade association. Been at Philips about 10, 11 years now going on. Started in engineering service kind of background and been working in sustainability the last 5 years, of which that has been very busy subject, as we know. That's briefly me.
Yeah, and I know you've recently you're full-time into this sustainability role now, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I mean, give Philips the dues. They've kind of spent a lot of time investing into sustainability. And I wouldn't say badger, but I have been vocal in my support of the work we do and the need to kind of focus on that. And I'm working with the MD now, Mark Leckwich, who's been really supportive of that work. And he kind of agreed that we needed to fully commit to it. I was doing it as a kind of double hatter previously, and that workload was just growing and growing. And the potential as well in sustainability work is massive. So Philips have recognised that. I am the first of my kind in the world within Philips, so that's quite a daunting and quite a positive step forward. My kind of goal now is to get another me somewhere else, and then we kind of grow it from there, because I think it's part of my role is kind of taking the Philips vision and making that happen day to day. How do we take kind of our circular ambitions and make that happen on the shop floor? How do we transfer sustainability as a vision into sustainability as an actual kind of proper product that that benefits people and the planet?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, I guess it's kind of a reflection of the industry and the landscape as well, that the sustainability agenda continues to ramp up, and organizations are increasingly looking to put people full-time into these positions, because the kind of requirements that are coming and keeping up to date with what we need to be aware of, what's coming down the road, is kind of ever increasing, really. So I'm sure you're very busy with what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, as we know, healthcare, or as people don't know, actually, it turns out to be is kind of one of the biggest polluters, bigger than aviation, bigger than shipping, something like 4.4%, between 4 and 5, depending on where you live and globally and what data you look at. So, yeah, not to underestimate that task. That is a big piece of work, of which it's becoming more and more kind of urgent that we do something. Thankfully, everybody in healthcare is really kind of bought in and understands this, which is a real positive. You're not having to potentially convert people. It's more a collaboration and kind of supportive function as such.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I know Philips appears to have been really quite early on the journey in terms of their sustainability. Really, back in the 90s, we're really focusing on this stuff way ahead of most of the industry. I guess that's kind of put you a long way ahead today. But as with everyone else, we're all on our journey. So what are the kind of the things that over the years you've come to kind of build into the business, or initiatives that are formed that you're working on now kind of internally that help prop up that kind of sustainability mandate?
Yeah, I mean, you have to say great vision. You know, I know people take pride in the company they work for and things like this, but I mean that vision at such an early stage to kind of transform your business and take it in a direction, you know, that really goes away from kind of that hard commerce that you expect from big industry bodies, and think, you know, hang on, we're potentially going to be causing issues further down the line, and if you're wanting longevity, that kind of mindset needs to change. And so, you know, hail to Philips, they've had a real kind of mindset change at a very early stage. So the things like adopting circularity, working with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, University of Exeter, that has been, you know, very early adopters of that, and building that into products, because ultimately, you know, that's part of that piece, making products more circular, using less resources. As we know, we're about 1.7 planets worth of annual renewals that we use up at the moment, which is obviously 0.7 more of a planet than we have. So reducing those raw material intakes is a vital part, and that is just one of kind of 5 parts of our eco design philosophy that we do. So every product now that we are creating has this kind of eco design ethos that includes circularity around that, reducing plastics, reducing waste, reducing energy. It's basically that reduction factor that we're looking for. And then kind of looking at that kind of second life, you know, we're not selling to one person anymore. You know, we're taking it back. We're refurbishing stuff, and we have now what we class as our circular edition equipment, which is, to you and me, refurbished equipment, but, you know, same guarantees as buying a new one. So that's, you know, a real positive, I think, and especially when you look at the kind of amount of materials that a new product consumes compared to a refurbished product, that is good, you know, that is a vital part. And as well, I mean, you look at things like COVID and the things that, you know, that the impact that had with raw resource and raw materials.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much the industry was, you know, and health as a whole was suffering under that. And, you know, you're reading the data, not to be doom and gloom, but it's when is the next COVID, not if there's a next COVID. So protecting yourself, you know, making a company with that longevity is, you know, you've got to hail Philips for that. But as well, as I always say, it's not about being in front. You know, nobody wins unless we all win. So one thing that we are very keen on doing is working with anybody that we can, basically, to kind of help them along that journey, because that is vital. You know, it's not a race. This is kind of it's something that we all need to do together. We all need to cross the line together. So that's the only way that'll work. So that's, you know, one of the positives from my side, because I think it's quite a nice position to be in, that you can help people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that a lot of the products that Philips make are kind of particularly well suited to more of a circular model. You know, these aren't single use, very basic, almost consumer items. These are more closer to the CapEx pieces of equipment, essentially. But within that, you've still got to kind of design with circularity in mind, right? And I know this new product, I think it was an ultrasound machine that you were recently showcasing as kind of, was that like the new flagship version of this kind of circular product that you're talking about?
Yeah, so we've done this across the whole product range, but it was a classic example of just demonstrating the fact of circularity and, you know, what a positive impact it was. So at ECR earlier in the year in Vienna, this was about end of February, early March, we had 2 ultrasound pieces of equipment. One was refurbished, one was new, and the challenge was to identify which one was which. So people had a nice little recycled wool balls, because we don't use plastic balls, obviously. And you would vote in a tube to say, which you thought was the new one, basically. And it was about 50-50, to be honest. It's when you've got two, I suppose there is an element of luck, but there is, people did. And to be fair, there was some EBME community that didn't get it right. So it just shows you that, cosmetically you can make these things good. And we don't put new panels on. So panels is one, because there's a heavy plastic element there that we reuse. We will kind of sand them down, repaint them, and do it that way. So there's a saving there. I mean, these systems, just on an ultrasound system, we're reusing 79%. So from a raw materials perspective, it's a no-brainer, really.
It's
If you're
huge,
looking to if you're looking to reduce your carbon footprint, this is a great way of doing it. And you get the same guarantees, you get the same warranties. It performs exactly the same as a new one. Everything's there that's exactly the same. And the other good thing, which, being a Yorkshireman, I always think with my wallet, so it's 25% cheaper on average. So,
Wow.
that is it's a real positive. I think we yet need to build an embrace within UKI of this kind of thought, and the impact it can have. Granted, it won't be right for everybody, but there is, I think, a market for it. We just need to embrace it more in UKI, for sure.
Brilliant. And is this product kind of tapping into new markets at a lower price point, or is this about same market, lower price point? Potentially it's that whole more imaging, reducing bottlenecks in care pathways. Is it more kind of that route?
It's either, to be fair, Rich. It could quite easily go either way. I mean, it is all about patient, focus, basically. We don't forget, as part of sustainability work, that the patient is a vital part of this. And ultimately, our campaign at the moment, Care Means the World, is all about patient and planet, and that harmony of them both being healthy, because one can't be healthy without the other one. So that is the big part of the message. So yeah, patient workflows is obviously a factor. We know the strains the NHS is under with and HSE in Ireland, with kind of patient waiting lists, etc. So staff, again, is a finite resource. We're suffering there. So things that can help with workflows, improve your workflows, get more patients through at less energy, because ultimately that's a factor we have to look at, and less carbon is a win-win. So the possibilities are countless.
It's that care pathway aspect, right? So we can kind of get quite blinkered into product carbon footprint. Where are my components coming from? How emissive is this as a product? But there's that care pathway side, where if we can shorten procedure times, reduce the number of outpatient appointments, etc., we can actually save as much carbon and costs all along the way as well. And I know that there's been a lot of talk, obviously, with AI becoming more prevalent, particularly with imaging, and its ability to speed up some of this process. Is that something that Philips have been looking at as well, or adopting?
I mean, in MR we're using it quite a lot, and things like PACS and RIS, intelligent work lists, kind of within MR, kind of workflows where it kind of learns your processes and will kind of set you up so you're ready to go for certain procedures. It will suggest, oh, there you go, this is we just to reiterate, we use the term augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, because we feel still, it needs to have that human element within it to kind of verify that that's the way you're going to go. So it doesn't kind of completely take over, but it kind of streamlines that. So, you are getting patients through quick, because we know that is something that, people are suffering from. So getting patients through quicker, smart diagnostics. So when people are reporting on the images, it's kind of flagging up to say, all right, we think this is the area of concern and we believe this is what it is, and then you can tick off, yes, I agree, that's what it is, or no, I don't agree, and then that goes on for further study. And there's smart ways of working as part of that, and as I always say, it's not about replacing people. It's kind of working with what we've got and supporting people to do what they can with, because ultimately we've got less people and a bigger demand, and that demand is only going to go up if we don't address the sustainability factor, because you look at the kind of projections that are coming out, more deaths, more pathogens, etc. So you have to kind of address one as well as the other one. So they all go hand in hand.
Yeah. So you touched on a point earlier about your involvement also outside of Philips, but working with Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I think it was AXREM as well. And I know we've met at some ABHI and Design for Life events. What do you kind of get involved with outside of the Philips kind of ecosystem, and how are you kind of working in those kind of external capacities?
Yeah, I mean, they're just a few. I did a slide at a sales conference, actually, just showing some of the interactions, and it was felt full, to say the least. It went on for about 5 minutes, which when you stood there watching these things fly in, it seemed like forever. But yeah, I mean, we've obviously met at Design for Life, the Department of Health and Social Care, as well, events where we've done that some work. BSI, I'm a committee member on their sustainability panel there, so we do some work with BSI as well. What else do we do? ABHI, yeah, as you mentioned. So I represent Philips on that one. AXREM, I chair the sustainability one. What else have we got? We've got quite a few in there.
And the Ellen MacArthur
MacArthur, yes.
Yeah, that one sounds quite interesting. I think you've got an event coming up as well.
We have. So I've been involved with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for a couple of years now, but Philips have been involved from really early. So we kind of saw the benefits of circularity, so kind of wanted to partner with kind of the thought leader, which Ellen MacArthur is certainly that. So we've been a partner of theirs for quite a while, and in a couple of weeks I'm in London and we're doing a sprint event where we're looking at how we adopt circularity into businesses, and taking practical examples, and looking at how we can make circularity a more business friendly model. So we will interview kind of financial CFOs and people like that, pretty high up people as part of this kind of week-long event, and try and move with that. University of Exeter as well. There we do a lot of work with them. We did a paper with them a few years ago, just after the Sir Simon Stevens report on net zero came out. We were like, okay, this is a great report. It's setting out this vision to be the first health system to be net zero. So we worked with the University of Exeter and said, okay, we've got a paper here. This is what they want to do. How do we do it? And the University of Exeter worked with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation very closely. And so we did some work, and we wrote a paper off the back of that and identified kind of the 3 stakeholders, which is companies like Philips, so industry, private industry, how we contribute, looked at procurement and how they work within net zero, and we also looked at like the users of equipment. And it made kind of suggestions for each group on how you needed to change your business to meet this net zero goal. So, and I think that's been one of the great papers to be involved in. I was interviewed as part of that from the industry perspective, so that was quite nice to be involved in. But yeah, it's a paper I push quite heavily because I think it is quite informative. So if you've not seen it, it is on the AXREM site. If you go onto AXREM, or look up AXREM on Google, and then you can see the University of Exeter paper. It's well worth a read. A bit long, but well worth a read.
That sounds great. Thanks for sharing that. The point you'd mentioned earlier as well about kind of it's no good us being 10 years on if the rest of the industry isn't kind of coming with us. And I suppose this kind of work with industry working groups is also helping kind of collaborate and share ideas and help bring those other organizations on the journey. Just speaking with kind of industry peers, what do you get a sense of as being the barriers that they seem to be facing, or what's perhaps holding up the net zero agenda within other organizations that you're kind of just from conversations that you're having?
Yeah, so through Action, we have an SME community within that, so we do get involved, and I do try and help out on the SME community as much as possible. Obviously, just recently we've had the carbon reduction plans, so I know through ABHI, Action, both give hands up to both organisations, really positive events, helping people along that journey, but also I've been involved in helping people with CRPs. And how to get those started, and basic ways of writing those. Evergreen was obviously a massive project, and still a challenge, I think, for a lot of people, especially from an SME community. There's a lot of data to be put in there. We, Axrem, as an organisation, had a conference last year, and we kind of supported Evergreen. As members, we were saying, we think all members should do Evergreen anyway, but that kind of got taken out of our hands because NHS supply chain, kind of not forced the agenda, but kind of made it needed anyway. Which, to be fair, again, I kind of applaud that, because Evergreen, if you look at the kind of objectives of Evergreen, it's a really positive thing. Not an easy, set of questions to fill out. If you're a starting organisation, there's a lot of data there, and finding that data is a challenge. People are just thinking that's going to really cost me to get that together. Yeah. So that is a challenge, and I think I know the NHS recognise that. I speak with Alex Salmon quite a lot, and she's always really positive about supporting the industry and helping us move forward. So I think from a joined up kind of point of view, everybody is really supportive of each other, but we are so early along that journey that it's just a matter of helping people to get started, and I think the NHS, well, I know the NHS know this, and they are very supportive of that position. They're using, I think this is where industry gets confused, is they're seeing Evergreen as more of a stick, and it's not. It's a carrot totally. We're trying to use it to promote the kind of more sustainability aspects of the business. So look at it that way. It's kind of, you might not have data for it now, but now you need to get that data so you can go away and look at ways of doing it. And so sustainability wise, you are developing that way, and that's the kind of positive side of Evergreen that I think sometimes people get a little bit confused over. And ultimately, we've had people with no score, we've had people with maturity levels up to 3, I think, at the moment. And I know that has also caused a little bit of frustration, but again, it's the whole idea is promoting sustainable practices. So it shouldn't be seen as frustrating. It's a development tool to say, look, okay, there we're weak, so we'll invest some time into understanding what we need to do, and ultimately I know it might sound costly now, but it'll be a hell of a lot more costly if you do it later. I mean, the planet can't wait for later, for one, so that's going to be costly, and plus the cost of all these things will only go up. So it's one of those things. And social value has also been the big one. I don't think we've got to the bottom of social value yet. That's still in development. I know there is a lot of debate going on, and we've got the new procurement paper coming out later in the year. So again, that could change the landscape again. So we'll wait and see what that brings. But I think people are there. They understand the message, they're supportive of the message, both from climate and social value points of view. But it's probably just, it's new, and people are still trying to get their heads around it a little bit.
That's kind of been the experience that we've had. So doing quite a bit of work with SMEs and helping them through the carbon reduction plan phase. It's quite a steep learning curve to begin with, and I think once you get through that first carbon reduction plan and you get visibility over your emissions and in which categories they're sitting,
Yeah.
It's really quite striking how much of an impact an organization can have and how much of it is related to the products that you're producing. And clearly Philips have identified that through trying to, go down the circular route very early on, which is not an easy task for another organization to pivot, and you don't switch to that overnight. You've got well-established business models that I suppose it comes back to having like a longer term vision, like you said at the start. Credit to Philips for having that long term vision and thinking in those terms. So that's really interesting. And I think, as you said, we're kind of at the bottom of this curve and we're just trying to kind of ramp up, and there's this rapid learning curve going on at the moment. And I think we'll probably see in the next couple of years, really strong moves being made and initiatives being set forth within organizations to really tackle those emissions as well. So really good. I guess just to kind of summarize really, and one thing that I'm quite keen to do with the podcast is to help provide a bit of inspiration to those perhaps in the industry, sustainability leads, CEOs who are looking at their organization and how they should perhaps be considering adopting sustainability and making it more core in the business. From your perspective and your work with Philips, do you have any kind of perspective or advice, if you like, that you would impart?
Yeah, I would say don't be daunted by the kind of data and the kind of projections that can sometimes feel really negative. You're never alone for another thing. The great thing about sustainability and the sustainability community is that we all like to collaborate, and that is part of the kind of learning. So yeah, Philips is advanced, but we don't know everything. There's firms doing great work in this field, and sharing that is the big thing, and that's something at Philips we're trying to do. We've just set up, for example, a kind of a mini COP with certain trusts in the UK, where we kind of look at their sustainability journeys and they share things between them. So we facilitate this call once a quarter, basically. So it's not our call, it's not Philips' call to own. It's an NHS kind of event, but we just bring it together, and we do it over Teams because obviously we're sustainable. And we just, somebody will speak at each event, and they will talk about work they've done on sustainability. So that could be renewables. Reducing plastics is a big part of the journey. So collaborating together, sharing those best practices, and working together is key. So don't think that you're on your own. There is a massive supportive community. I'm on LinkedIn, reach out. I'm always happy to offer advice as much as I can, or even receive advice, to be fair. I don't know it all. I feel like most in the sustainability community would class ourselves as talented amateurs, I think is probably the phrase. We kind of fall into sustainability from a kind of an understanding from your kind of outside life or some kind of event that you're involved. You see it at work and think, oh, that's interesting, I'll get a bit more involved in that, and then it grows and grows, and then somebody gives you a job.
It snowballs. It does
Doing it
snowball.
full time.
I always say that once you kind of see and learn these things, you can't see or unlearn them, and at that point you kind of find yourself kind of broadcasting it, sharing it, telling anyone who'll listen that we need to be changing our principles and practices around these things. So yeah, I can definitely resonate with that one. And I really liked your point about don't be overwhelmed by the data, and reach out and engage with the community, because everyone's kind of on this journey at the same time. It's quite a leveler in that respect.
And it's the one time that we're not competitive, which is it ultimately should never be reviewed in that way. But it's we all need to kind of work together. We are kind of a global company, the biggest global company, probably as an organization of sustainability people coming together. It's the biggest, it's the biggest force, and that's the only way that we'll move. And just them little changes, you just make little changes. You stop putting less harmful things down your sink. You're not pouring your drugs away, or you're using less contrast. Just those little things that'll start building up, and make it part of your day-to-day life. As I always say to organizations, they'll say to me, where do I start? And say, well, do you have a sustainability section on every meeting you have? And they're probably, oh no, we don't. Well, everybody should be talking about it every kind of meeting. If you're in a interventional lab, before you start the procedure, all right, how can I make this a bit more sustainable? How can I use less resource? Do I need to put my gloves on? Those kind of things, just little things like that will make a massive difference when we start scaling up. So
that's great advice. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Chris. Really appreciate your time, and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, Rich. Always a pleasure.
Okay.
At a time where health tech SMEs are just getting started on the sustainability journey, Philips are a great example of how sustainability can be at the core of a business and be leveraged to turn it into an opportunity for growth and future-proofing a business in a climate-conscious world. This podcast is brought to you by PDM. We are a design and innovation consultancy. We really hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, please drop a like and perhaps share with someone who needs to hear it. We've got more episodes like this coming up, so stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the next one.